Good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience as we were getting settled. Welcome to the next member hour, which continues our AMAA series. Today's presentation is an overview of Pillar 2 in the Alliance of Modernizing African Agri-Food Systems. The focus of the session today is Enhancement of Entrepreneurship and Business Development. My name is Sarah Rodriguez, and I'm the Director of Member Engagement here at ASABE. Member hours were started as an opportunity for our members to learn about new ideas in our society in ag and bioengineering and to network with our colleagues. In a few minutes, we'll get started, but just a few quick session guidelines. Please keep your audio on mute during the presentation. If you have questions, you can type them into the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll be opening up for verbal questions during the question and answer segment after the planned remarks. This meeting will be recorded and will be available for later viewing on the ASABE YouTube channel. Today, we're hearing from Terry Howell Jr. at the University of Arkansas and Klein Elijah at Purdue University. Again, they're presenting AMAA Pillar 2, Enhancement of Entrepreneurship and Business Development. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and I appreciate everyone making time to be here with us. As she mentioned, my name is Terry Howell, and I'm at the University of Arkansas. I've been here for 6 months. Prior to that, I was at the University of Nebraska for 5 years, and then with McKee Foods Corporation for 16 years. And looking forward to this time together. Sarah, I was ASABE president almost a decade ago, and this type of activity within our professional society was a little bit of a dream even back then. So I really appreciate what you and other staff members have been doing over the last 2 or 3 years to put these events together. It's a great way to use our modern technology to allow members to connect together and to explore how our professional society can be relevant in a lot of different ways. And so looking forward to the time together today. Klein, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Terry, and thanks for your leadership with Pillar 2. I'm Klein, Ileleji. I'm a professor of ag and biological engineering at Purdue. I'm also an entrepreneur and the co-founder and CEO of Joy Technologies International. We are a company that manufacture and design build solar dehydrators focused with small mid-size farmers, and in particular in developing countries, with our mission being starting out of Africa.
Right. And so one of the things that I think we can do today in our time together is, we're going to explore a little bit about how this pillar amongst the AMAA initiative, kind of what its goals and dreams are. But I think we're really fortunate to have Klein with us, because of his expertise as someone who has been doing entrepreneurship on the African continent for, I think, well into a decade at this point. And so he has a lot of insight that I think helps us as we work on this pillar to really try to be as effective as possible. I was thinking back as we were preparing for this session when I first met Klein. And Klein, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I remember meeting you in an ASABE meeting around 2000 or 2001. We were both young faculty members working on grain storage and handling, and we were presenting in some of the same technical sessions. And I was immediately impressed by your work, and I think we've been friends ever since. And it's been wonderful over the last 3 or 4 years to be connected through the AMAA as well. So it's just another example of how this professional society is beyond just our technical contributions. We become friends in the process, and so I really have appreciated your friendship over the last 20 years. So
thank you, Terry. I recollect that time, and the feeling is the same. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is what we're going to try to cover today. We're going to give a little bit of a recap of the AMAA strategic initiative within ASABE. So it should be familiar to many of you, but in case it's not, we'll make it quite brief so we don't take too much time there. We'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of Pillar 2, which relates to entrepreneurship and business development. We're going to share a brief recap also of the recent AMAA meeting that was conducted in November. The meeting was, the conference was imagining the African agri-food systems looking forward. And so we'll share a little bit about the technical sessions that related to Pillar 2 and some of the other items that happened there. And then hope to have a good discussion amongst the attendees of the session, so that we can continue to think about ways to make this strategic initiative within ASABE as effective as we can. And like I said, it's great to have the leadership we've had to date in driving this, and looking forward to really getting more voices to the table so that we can do even more things. So first, I think we ought to set the stage a little bit for some of the drivers that may be impacting not only the technology that's going to be growing in the African continent, but also the entrepreneurship opportunities. And so I'm borrowing a couple of slides that were shared from our colleagues Ajit Srivastava, Kumar, Malika Jarjanan, and just so I think most people who are attending this are well aware of some of the opportunities that are being created around the world, and particularly as it relates to agriculture and agri-food systems. So one, we have this population boom that's we're in the middle of, and so for the next 25 years, we're still expecting to add another 1 to 2 billion people over on top of our nearly 8 billion that we have today. So we have this, as the population grows, we're having an opportunity for the middle class to be growing as well. And so that middle class is going to have some different food consumption trends than what we might be seeing today. So protein and animal foods are going to become a larger part of the diet because of that. An increase for higher value foods, and an increase for more processed foods. Klein, do you have anything, as you look at this slide, anything that you want to add as far as just this mega trend that's starting to impact just the agri-food systems across Africa and beyond?
Just one thing to mention, I think Ajit has spoken about it. I have spoken about that before. The increasing concentration of people in the urban centers will definitely drive the demand for food. And Ajit did mention that before. If you look at some of the trends and the projections, population projections of the way cities will grow in the continent, that will definitely drive the demand for food in African cities and overall in the continent. So that's one of the things to be mindful of when you look at the picture.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think we see that today, even across the United States, where the majority of our food is produced in parts of the country where the population centers are not located. And so when you think about how in a country like the United States, we've managed to create systems that allow food to be distributed relatively equitably. I mean, there are certainly gaps and challenges here in the United States that need to be overcome, and there are lots of work to be done. But for the majority of people, access and reliability of the food system is as good as anywhere in the world. And so we've kind of seen that transformation happening here. And I think, as you mentioned, in Africa, that same transformation is going to be starting to happen too, where you've got population centers that are going to continue to expand, and yet so the needs for the ability to get food produced and then distributed in a way that gets to people is going to be certainly a major challenge, a major opportunity for disruption and growth in the agri-food systems there. And what I think we're all realizing, I think quite understanding it's not going to look like what we've seen across Europe or across the United States, or even maybe even in places like China or India. What I've kind of observed is that everywhere, as their development improves and changes, the ways they make it effective are really tailored to those specific needs. So that's going to be something that kind of leads us maybe into this slide, where we talk about the fact that so much of African agriculture is managed and conducted by smallholder farmers. And so those, I think most of the people that are tuning in and who pay attention to this will realize that smallholder is defined as roughly under 2 hectares per farm, and so you end up with lots of small farms, and they're quite diverse. So they can be producing animal agriculture and other produce on the same tract of land, and so it makes the needs in those spaces quite different than what we've seen as agri-food systems have expanded in the European and US world. So as you look at this slide, Klein, what other things kind of step out to you or jump out at you as far as what the opportunities might be in technology development and then entrepreneurship to take advantage of that? So
thanks, Terry, for that great question. I mean, this slide is essentially the driver of Pillar 2 and why the effort has entrepreneurship and business development as part of it. If you're in business, you look at the right side of this slide, $110 billion of food imports by 2025, 1.3 trillion spending of top 18 cities by 2030, and $80 billion return on investment per year for 18 agricultural value chains. I mean, all that is business. What as a business person or someone who is an entrepreneur should be thinking about is how can I get a cut of these dollars going in? But definitely for African countries, 110 billion by 2025 is not sustainable. They know it, we know it. But then the flip side of it, when you look at this slide, is the opportunity that folks in the continent and out of the continent. So we're looking at businesses that will be formed in the continent, as well as American businesses or businesses in other countries that could be formed to drive, to capture a piece of the pie there. Huge opportunities when you look at the right-hand side of the slide. And the question is, as we move on to this talk, is what do we need to do to impact that, to capture that? What do we need to do to stem, rather than having 110 billion in imports, what do we do to cut that down?
Yeah, thank you, Klein. So I'm going to transition a little bit just to refresh on, so as Klein kind of shared these challenges and opportunities that are in front of us, it leads us to how AMAA was formed. And I know we've had previous member hour that have focused exclusively on that, so I don't want to spend too much time on here, but just again for those who may be joining us for the first time, Klein, you were there at the beginning when AMAA was formed. I mean, it's about 4 years old now. How would you describe kind of how this group came together? Was it prior to 2020, or was that roughly around when things started to
Yeah, about 2019, when the vision was brought to the attention of the ASABE, the African community, by Ajit. And Ajit came to the meeting, reminded us about some of the things we just shared in the slide, and said, we as ag engineers, we've been a huge part of the solution here in the US, in Asia. I think as we look at the tide going towards the need for solutions in the continent, what can we do as a membership? And so with that, the community discussed with Ajit, and it was a grassroots effort. People like you and I got all recruited out of excitement to do something. And I know, Terry, you've been part of the global engagement. You led that effort when you were president. And so it was just we who have done something globally, Ajit and others, Margaret, we just all chipped in. So it's been out since 2019, and I must give kudos to all those who have been involved for just your sheer persistence and hard work.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And so I think, for the sake of taking advantage of this member hour to just talk about the general ASABE professional society, I think it might be appropriate just to pause for 1 second and just talk about the fact that if you haven't had a chance to cast your ballot for the ASABE elections, hopefully you are aware that there is an opportunity to vote on a strategic initiative council being formed for the professional society. There's a lot of information that you can look up on the website to kind of explain the purpose behind that. But this AMAA initiative, I think is one of the big drivers for why that council is needed. So that council would provide a framework for our members when they coalesce around a really important topic like this, and give them some an avenue within our professional society to start to formulate the kind of the structural needs that they might have to get an initiative off the ground. And so you mentioned the word persistence. I can't really thank enough of the persistence of you and Ajit Srivastava and Margaret Gatau and Sonorbe Honorble. That group in particular has been just so diligent to just continue to craft an initiative that I think gets people excited about the way our professional society can contribute to these massive challenges. And so as we look at that, so that the initiative is really rallied around 4 pillars, and pillar 1 is technology development and assessment and deployment. And so you've already hopefully been able to see the member hour that Dr. Malika Jardin put together. And that pillar would work really closely with the pillar that we have here on entrepreneurship and business development. There are a lot of technology developments that need to happen, and once those happen, their commercialization, I think, is really important. And so that's one pillar. The third pillar is capacity building and workforce development. You see Dr. Meyer as the pillar lead from Iowa State, who has a vast international experience. And that pillar is really looking at ways to enhance opportunities for workforce development, in particular building more infrastructure in the educational programs in Africa. Having spent time at Nebraska, one of those educational institutions is in Rwanda, the Rwandan Institute for Conservation Agriculture, RICA, and we had a great presentation from RICA administrators at the conference in November. So there's some really wonderful things that are happening in that pillar as well. And the fourth pillar is infrastructure and policy framework, led by Dr. Gotti from McGill. And that pillar is looking at all the different infrastructural needs that sometimes can prevent growth in the African continent, and can prevent some of these technologies from being adopted more widely. And so there again are a lot of opportunities there. So it's a really well crafted initiative, and we're looking forward to trying to contribute as best we can in pillar 2. And so here are the 3 kind of major emphasis areas for our pillar. I'll just read them and we'll kind of move on to some of our strategic goals. One is that facilitation of technology evaluation and transfer and scaling, and supporting entrepreneurs as they navigate kind of, do they have something worth commercializing? And then looking at ways to help supporting them through business incubation and technical services. And lastly, facilitating access to support services, business planning, financing, marketing, and those kinds of things. And so it begins to reach beyond our professional expertise at times. It really, there are certain things that maybe we can do as engineers, but then, as we need other members of this pillar really to come from the investment community, from the business development community, and even some people who are thinkers in those spaces. And so one of the things that I really appreciate about these strategic initiatives that are happening within ASABE, this one and the Circular Bioeconomy Initiative, both initiatives are member driven by ASABE members and have a very strong need for agricultural and biological engineering expertise, but they have an equally strong need for support from either social sciences or other technical sciences or business world. And so I think these initiatives will allow ASABE to continue to build its relevance beyond just our own technical training and profession. So that's another soapbox, but we have a mission to assist the sub-Saharan African agri-food technology innovators in building sustainable businesses to enhance the quality of life in Africa and beyond. And our vision is to be a trusted source for entrepreneurship support for agri-food innovators in sub-Saharan Africa. So those are kind of our overarching mission vision. And I'm just going to share with you some of the goals that we have. We want to create a thriving kind of ecosystem of people. So that's kind of goal number one. We want to create programming that supports this pillar mission. And so we'll show you some of the things that we're thinking about there. And we want to make connections so that AMAA is seen as a key resource for entrepreneurs. And that's where I'm getting at is, once we can build some credibility and networking and connections with people, hopefully people will begin to think about how they can leverage the AMAA for their growth in different areas of Africa. So we've got some short-term goals, and I'm looking at the watch. It's 12:30, so I want to be mindful of an opportunity for us to have some dialogue at the end. So I'm gonna probably kind of cut through the goals quickly, or just let you kind of absorb them a little bit. The slides will be available if you'd like them later on. But short term is really trying to get our pillar team built and functioning well. We're looking at trying to create some just basic webinars that might allow us to have some on-demand programming that people could find, and then hopefully the quality will be good enough that people will continue to ask for more and give us more ideas. Hoping to create a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. So we need to recruit some mentors and then make them available as we find mentees. And then partnering with other organizations across Africa that would be like-minded on entrepreneurship support. So a chance for us to build those relationships. A little bit more medium term, we're looking at maybe creating a curriculum similar to what the National Science Foundation I-Corps program looks like here domestically. I think it would need to be tailored to the needs of Africa and not just regurgitated. And then creating hubs that support regional needs that build on other pillars. And so some of the other pillars are working on some technology hubs. And so how can we take it, participate in those hubs with them in a way that makes sense. We're looking at then also trying to, find funding for, developing this pillar as well. And then the long term is really creating some open innovation, opportunities across Africa. So if you're not familiar with open innovation, the idea is that companies or entities might share their needs, and those entrepreneurs and scientists, engineers who have maybe the right solution can then find someone who needs it, and so they can be matched in a way that allows both of them to have a winning combination. That would be a really nice long-term goal, and then just create a self-sustaining pillar within AMAA. So those goals kind of then lead us to, like, what do we want to actually have accomplished, or what are some outcomes that we might want to have in the next 5 or 6 years. And so this is a little bit of a summary of maybe if we start to put these goals together and see what what would be some things that we might be able to quantify or measure. So one of them would be that 20 different startups will have been supported through this pillar across different ways that we might be able to provide input to them. And hopefully at least 10 of them will continue to be functioning in some capacity at the end of 2030. And maybe a couple of them will have been acquired already by investors. And so that those entrepreneurs can be moving on to their next idea. We want to be connected strongly to the other hubs within AMAA. Our mentoring program will be flourishing. And then lastly, that maybe an incubation program will also be established that's got strong financial backing. And so you'll see that as we had our meeting in Senegal, our virtual meeting, some of these things were starting to come together in a little bit of ways. So Klein, do you want to kind of rehash what we did in the virtual meeting in Senegal? I've kind of got the slides showing different things we did, but
sure. It opened with in the first day prior to the workshop, prior to the meeting, with a workshop that was conducted by Dr. Krishna and Satish out of Michigan State, and Terry Howell out of Arkansas, Nebraska. Just to let you know, Terry used to be the director of a sort of industry-related research product development lab in Nebraska. So he has quite a bit of entrepreneurship, and also he comes from industry. So that was a workshop that we brought a lot of startups and to come in to do some hands-up on planning. Then we had technical sessions related to investment fund. There's an investment fund that's been set up to support entrepreneurs in Africa that's actually linked to AMAA, and at some point probably Ajit might give a talk on that fund, what you're doing there. And then we also had a technical showcase where we had 18 exhibitors. We had a meet and greet session, which was quite interesting, a lot of great discussion. And that technical session, meet and greet session, you go see some of the things that Terry had talked about we're planning to do, even were resonated at that session. For example, things like how do universities even set up their own innovation or what I'll call IP to industry system. A lot of countries in Africa don't have entrepreneurship centers or commercialization centers in their universities. Those are things that we could bring to that group. Standards was one of the things that came up that we think the ASABE can contribute highly, and obviously having expertise embedded in some of these companies were some of the things that were highlighted there. Just a few, but quite an interesting session. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the thing that that the meeting was for those who were with us today, who were able to participate, maybe those who couldn't. It was a really valuable 2 or 3 days where we were able to put voices and faces together with email addresses that we'd been collecting over the last couple of years, and I was just so encouraged by that whole meeting. There was a lot of great energy around this strategic initiative. There was a lot of enthusiasm for the work. Like I said, we were able to make relationships with people that we'd only maybe exchanged emails with previously, and so it was a good day, and it was a chance for us to maybe see a glimpse of what the future could look like as we start to work on this this initiative together. And so that really kind of leads me to maybe just kind of the last slide that we'll put up, and these may spur some questions amongst the attendees, and so maybe Klein, you and I might just talk through a couple of these questions for a second, but we may have people on the call who are even more informed than we are, certainly more informed than I am, and could help us kind of think through, is there anything that we're missing as we think through this pillar? Are there any things, that ASABE and AMAA can be doing to be more effective? And so some of the things that, that we're thinking about as a pillar is just how do we not nurture entrepreneurs in Africa? I mean, one of my first responses would be, it's hard to do that nurturing from the United States and from other places. I think that nurturing needs to happen probably from our members who are embedded in the African countries for the most part. So that's just at least one, and I think that's one of the things that we need to leverage more. We've got many members across the African continent who are active contributors to ASABE. So we need to make sure that ASABE is effective for those members, including as they want to work in that space. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? I mean, you've kind of been in the entrepreneurship, boots on the ground. So
So thanks a lot, Tara, for that question and leading this talk. One of the things I want to highlight here quickly is that the continent is not totally a dark intent or a new slate in terms of businesses in the agri space. So there are well-established companies like we have here who are doing well in the ag space. They probably have been there for a lot of years. Some of these companies have ties to the US or to the UK or some Western world. For example, the largest flour mill in the world in one location is located in the continent in Nigeria. You also, in our meeting, we also had the largest soybean farmer at our meeting. And we had some entrepreneurs from Kenya. So we have some established folks. It's good to have these established folks because, like Terry said, the folks in Africa are in the best position to do some of this mentoring. And it's good to hear from them what they're going through, some of the challenges they're going through. We had a faculty member who had developed a cassava harvest and talked about the challenges of trying to establish and manufacture that unit and some of the challenges he's having from governments in importing equipment. Some of these things we hear are opportunities for us to ask, what should we be doing? How should we tailor our programming? And then obviously we have green space, blue oceans, where they've not been touched, where we can bring our expertise, and we don't have to redo things. India has a great success in green revolution. There are a lot of things we can learn from India. We had an Indian company that had the electric tractor that exhibited. So we can learn a lot from other countries in Southeast Asia, for example. And we can also repurpose some of our technology developed in the US, in the African continent. So you might all be familiar with Hello Tractor. They're like the Uber of tractorization. And they started off using two-cycle engines made in China. But today, one of the backers is John Deere. So the opportunity, if you're a company like the Deeres of the world and Case International, CNH, there are opportunities for the US companies to repurpose or reappropriate some of those technologies. So when we talk about the African continent and entrepreneurship, one of the things Stava always says is, let's always look at it as a business opportunity, a business case. And essentially that's what Pillar 2 is. And I hope if you're a company here, you will see that. You will not look at just small machines, garden tools type of thing, because we're talking of massive food production. We're talking of redefining a lot of things. So I like to just shout out that there's room for a lot of players to come in.
Yeah, and I think, just for the sake of time, I want to, make sure we give some chance for some, more questions and answers and discussion from the group. So I've just got a couple more comments, and then we can maybe open that up. But I've got a couple of notes on the screen here. One is I just started, as I was preparing for this, my mind just races to the kinds of things that I think could be effective. But again, it really does depend on I think the entrepreneurship, it needs to come from within, or at least the majority of it will come from within. There are certainly things that can be imported, and I think the Hello Tractor example is outstanding. If you're not familiar, maybe we should have had a slide on it alone, but it's really a tractor that can be used for multi-purposes, but it's really a tiny system, so it can be really effective in these smallholder type farms, because it's not, it's designed to be efficient in those smaller spaces. Right as the AMAA conference was being held in November, I think it was on even the same week as Agritechnica, the massive agricultural technology showcase that happens in Germany. And so my social media feeds were being filled with the most beautiful pieces of agricultural machinery you've ever seen from all of the major manufacturers. Generally, those machines were gigantic. They were the biggest machines I've ever seen for cultivating and producing crops, and then also harvesting crops. But when you look at the African context, those machines are just way too big to be effective in most of the agricultural systems that are there. But what it doesn't mean is that the technology that goes into those new things that technology is still quite relevant to what I think Africa needs for its revolution in the agri-food systems. But it's a matter of making that technology effective in small spaces, making it cost effective, making it also actually solve the problem that needs to be happening. So there's so many, you look at the tools that are being generated by our professionals across across the world. Those tools, I think, just can be tailored. That's where the entrepreneurs can take those tools and do something quite special. And so I think that's a big opportunity for us. And then the last kind of bullet point I have on here, maybe to generate some discussion too, is just, there's a lot of energy and natural resource intensive things that happen in production and processing of our food and fiber. And that happens, around the world. It's energy intensive. And so we're constantly trying to improve that. And I think, Africa potentially has a chance to be the leader in that space. They have some unique opportunities there as they don't, as they start from a little bit different spot than where we are in the US or in Europe. And maybe even, give you a chance, Klein, to tell us even a little bit about your solar drying company. I mean, that in some ways is a response to that. You're taking a processing technique that's highly critical to preserving food. It's highly energy intensive, and yet your technology is using solar to do it. And so, I mean, is that what prompted your company and your product? I mean, or was it something else that kind of got you off the ground?
Yeah, that was what prompted it, Terry. Good question. Like you said, Africa's, agriculture is resource intensive, and energy is a big part of that. And if you look at drying, is an energy intensive process, but also drying is one of the solutions to curb food waste. We have $1 trillion globally lost annually, and most of it comes from Africa, that loss. So that was prompted it. But one of the things when you think of entrepreneurship in Africa is you have to think of scale. You have to think of making a product that you can go and pick off the shelf. Joe Akali, roadside technician, fabricator, will not solve the problem. I'll just quickly stop here, but this is what when I go to the continent and I give talks, this is the first thing I ask. Show of hands, how many people can go to a store today and purchase a solar dehydrator, a solar dryer? Nobody raises their hand. Then I say, how many people can go and buy a Mercedes-Benz 350 today? Everybody raises their hand. So I'm like, how can you be able to buy a very expensive, highly technical car in Ghana, in Accra, in Nairobi, in Lagos, in any African country, and yet you can buy simple solar dryer? It tells us that we've not really scaled things, technologies. And you can go on and say thresher. You talk about the maize thresher, you can go on and say a small tractor, a rice harvester. It goes on and on. So the whole thing about the entrepreneurship is you make a device, but how can you take it to the market at scale so that a farmer can go into a store and buy it like they're buying, a simple car? That's what we don't have today in our agricultural system. In the US, in Europe, you can go anywhere and buy any tool, any tractor, any equipment you need.
Yeah, that's good. It's a great point. and it's a very it just highlights that there are opportunities in the things that we do as a profession that are still they still need not only technical refinement, but also then that someone to take that technology and turn it into a productive business as well. So I think that gives us a chance to move on to maybe some Q&A. I see that there's a couple of questions that have started to pop up in the chat. So Sarah, do you want us just to start addressing those, or how do we want to move from here?
Sure. Yeah, feel free to move through them as it makes sense to you.
Okay, so the first one I see is from Tim. Is there a need for an organization like IRRI, the International Rice Resource Institute, to develop equipment suited to 2-hectare farms? I think that's an interesting perspective, I think, groups like Erie, could be very effective in that space. I mean, they've got people who know the technology of the needs, but they've probably been working so hard for so long to intensify and magnify what they're doing. So having that learning then be put back into the smaller systems, and rethinking those smaller systems, I think would be quite important. So yeah, that's a good one. But I mean, Tim, do you have any of your thoughts on that subject? I'd love to hear that too. So, or anybody else. So.
No, I was just aware of that organization and knew several people that worked there.
Yeah.
And then they were making designs so that local fab shops could make the equipment.
Yeah, great.
Just to add quickly to that question, Erie, the difference I see in what organizations are doing than how they approach development is all about entrepreneurship. So all the CIGAR centers, that is the Erie types of centers, IITA, they all have incubation hubs. In the past you're talking of over how many decades, a lot of them just developed tools, but never thought of taking things to the market. And you can even see the whole idea of entrepreneurship going into even the UN World Food Program. So entrepreneurship is key to taking technologies to the market. If we don't have that, we can do all what we want and nothing will happen. But that's a good question.
And what you just said there, Klein, just again strikes a chord that I think it's different. It's just a different mindset than I was raised in. So, many of you know me. I've been a member of ASABE for probably almost 30 years, and so going through school in the late 80s, early 90s, entrepreneurship was not something that was ever discussed in my background and training. It just I don't know where that where those businesses were formed or did that disconnect happen, but it never crossed my mind to create something on my own. And then I leave academia for the bulk of my career and come back 6 years ago and discover that there are some really outstanding programs in the U.S. and there are faculty that are encouraged to take their technologies that they're discovering in their research and creating commercial opportunities there. I think there's been a really strong cultural shift in the U.S. academic system, and what's lagging a little bit is reward systems for those faculty members to do that kind of thing. But it's coming. I feel like there's some momentum to do that, and but so I think it kind of gets a little bit to the question from Daniel Wilson here I'll butcher your last name, so I apologize. That question about, is it possible to partner in designing graduate startup programs that will work on accelerating? I mean, that's a great question, and I think it's something that this pillar probably needs to be engaged in quite strongly, because what I saw at Nebraska, when that university would do its university-wide startup competitions and pitch competitions, they might as well have just called it the biological engineering pitch competition, because half of the good ideas were coming out of the biological systems engineering faculty at Nebraska, and those were they were creating not only technology that was transformative, but they were also thinking about ways to commercialize that technology so that it could actually begin to have an impact and not just sit on the shelves in a journal somewhere. So really fascinating time to be in our profession, and I think this pillar needs to to be that support, particularly in Africa, so that the entrepreneurs there can have a voice. So.
Here, if you allow me just to look, make a comment quickly on the question or comment by Maynard Heron about water issues. And definitely, Maynard, you're right on that. Water issues is a big one. Soil sustainability, all the environment. Just to mention that all that is not silent in the pillars. So water issues, soil and water issues, environmental sustainability, all that are not silent topics in the pillars. And we have some underlying, what we call underlying working principles that we need to adhere to. So good observation, but the pillars do address those issues as well. I don't know, there was a question here, Terry, about what role can entrepreneurship research play in what AMAA is trying to achieve?
Yeah, is the question just? I'm trying to think. Do they mean entrepreneurship research by just understanding how entrepreneurship is changing, or is it more on? I guess I'm not.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
This is what I really meant to say, because in your second slide, you indicated, the statistics that shows the potential that is ahead of us in terms of the return on investment, for example. And in that regard, wouldn't it be interesting to have an eye on what is coming and what are going to be the new trends in as far as the new developments are concerned?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not that we know that we currently do have some statistics, but again, we need to keep an eye on what is it happening with what are we going to realize. So probably entrepreneurship research can play a good role in that regard.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one of the things that and tell me if I'm on the right track here in trying to think along the lines that you are. And I'm going to kind of add even the idea that Maynard Heron put in here about how even water resources is also one of those challenging things that we're facing in agriculture. When you look at the opportunities for entrepreneurship, there's so much in the precision ag space, in the autonomous kind of vehicle space, in the just all of the different tools and ways to monitor quality of things being produced in real time, during production. So there's a lot of production opportunity. We could spend, ag and biological engineers could focus on those things, including how water is delivered or other nutrients, and it could be. I think there could be an unlimited number of opportunities for our profession to think like entrepreneurs. And then you get into the processing side, like what Klein has started with his business, and there are others that are doing, unique things there, and so seeing how those is the idea, David, or Daniel, that the looking at what are the trends in where's the bulk of the entrepreneurship happening? Is it happening in advances in field productivity, or is it in how food or agricultural products are processed, or are those kind of things that are on your mind, or am I missing the point?
I think you are not missing the point. That's exactly what I meant to say.
Okay.
But I wanted to add a sentence on the same. You know, apparently we are seeing that we have very good ambitions with regard to, organizing trainings, capacity building programs, and all these programs are going to see transformation in people. Okay, for example, incubation. When you start with the incubates, at some point they will have some skill sets, and probably they will, within the time that they will be incubated, develop other skill sets and put that into practice and create their own enterprises, right? And it should not just go without being noticed that something happened in here. And the best way to do that is conduct a research, keep track of what is happening, right? And get some people to know more about what has happened over the period of time in as far as programs are concerned. So it's one thing to have plans about what we need to do, yes, so that we need to transform the generation in Africa. But again, we need to keep track of that as well so that we can inform the future generation in terms of literature. This is what I meant. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thank you so much.
Great. It's good discussion. I know we're out. We're already at the hour. I just want to quickly do an ad call out here. I think Terry mentioned that one of the short-term goals of the pillar is to get between, is it 16 to 18 members? So there are folks out there, some of you are potentially should join the potentially candidates to join the pillar. You're already here and you're interested, so please do contact Terry or me to show your interest. We really will appreciate that, and we need minds like you to be part of this effort. Over to you, Terry.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. It's I just want to say thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today and continue to help kind of inform these conversations that we're having. And there's a lot of work to do, and but I think there's a lot of enthusiasm to do it. And so it's a really exciting time to be a part of ASABE, and it's, to me, it's having these kinds of conversations are really valuable for again, just making our professional society what we want it to be. We've all come together because we think maybe some of it's because it's our professional background, but also because this professional society offers us a chance to find like-minded people to work on projects together. And I think that's what joining these kind of initiatives can offer you. It makes ASABE not just a professional society that we read a newsletter from every so often, but it makes it a group of people that we can work together with. And that's where I have found value in this professional society in my career. And so, as I mentioned previously, I've known Klein for about 20 years. I see others that have been on the, that joined us today, and in almost every case, a smile kind of comes to my face when I see your name because of the different interactions we've had over the years, and the ways that you have influenced my career. And so that's what I think ASABE can be for all of us, is a place where we find people that can have a profound influence on our career together. And so hopefully, if any of you are interested in joining Klein and I would say the invitation is open. We need more people who are helping us understand how we can be effective here. We've got a couple of, we bring two perspectives. We've got perspectives from a few others. but we certainly need more. So if you have any interest, please reach out to us. And we look forward to hopefully getting together in person, maybe at the AIM in Anaheim. So I don't think I have anything else to add. Is there anything else that Sarah, that we need to do?
Just a huge thank you to you both for this presentation. If anybody has any questions they'd like to forward on to Terry or Klein, you're more than welcome to just email me. I'm a quick reference on the website. You can contact me easily at hq@asabe.org, or just go to the website and click any of the help buttons and it'll come to me. We are looking forward to exploring more AMAA topics in the future in the form of member hours. We don't have those dates set, so keep an eye on the calendar on the website for those to be settled. And have a nice rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you joining us.